What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is the winningest college basketball coach in NCAA history, Mike Krzyzewski. In his 42 seasons at Duke, Coach K built a dynasty that few programs in the history of the game can match. He is a Naismith Hall of Fame coach, a 5-time national champion, and NCAA record 13-time Final Four participant. As the head coach of the U.S. men's national basketball team, he brought home 6 gold medals, and he put on a leadership masterclass on how to connect his players to a mission bigger than themselves. In fact, the term masterclass, as it assigns itself to Mike Krzyzewski, is perfect because if you are a subscriber to that platform, as I am, the masterclass platform, you will log in and see that one of the greatest and most impressive sessions, classes available in the space of leadership is with our guest, Mike Krzyzewski. Throughout his career, Coach K has been diligently committed to public service, including assuming vital roles with the Duke Children's Hospital, the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research, the NABC Foundation, the CEO Roundtable on Cancer, and his personal charity, the Emily Krzyzewski Center. It is my honor to welcome Coach as a corporate competitor. So get your bonus resource downloaded from corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/160 and be ready to take notes.
I don't think you own it until you feel it. You know, it penetrates your heart and then your mind. One of the great force multipliers in business to make people feel a part of it is to ask 2 questions. How do you feel about that? What do you think? That empowers a person to be themselves. They're not just doing a job. It means more than that. You have to make your group feel that way.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
It's good to see you. Over the years, we've become good friends, and you've even come to our fantasy camp, and I hit a basket or 2. I'm not sure 3.
Oh, they call them Jaeger bombs for a reason, Coach.
Yeah. Bombs sometimes hit and sometimes miss. So.
Okay. Well, then, your charity, the Emily K Foundation, in your mom's name, the education charity, is so passionate, such an important part of who you are and what you do. And you do this event. A bunch of us old folks that want to come play at Cameron Indoor, you call it the K Academy, you call it a fantasy camp. I don't think there's any fantasy involved. I hit a shot. It's real. You've had this guy, number 78, coming to your event for a number of years. You got to give me a scouting report on that guy, Jaeger.
Well, depends on what shape you came in.
Oh.
The better the shape, the better the player. We bring back 30 to 40 of our former players, and camp is 5 days long.
Yeah.
115, mostly men, a few women. It's a great networking camp, the best one in the country, because you shed all your titles before you go on the court, and you get to make friends, not because of being a lawyer, a doctor, a writer, or whatever. You become friends because of who you are.
Are you a good teammate? Do you hit the open guy? Are you taking a bad shot when you shouldn't be?
Do you accept constructive criticism?
Oh,
Uh,
that hurts right there. I'm wondering
no,
if
see, don't be so sensitive. A lot of guys who are at the camp, they're always giving the orders. All of a sudden in a huddle, someone tells you to keep your mouth shut, or you do this or you do that. And you start having empathy for the people you have the honor to lead in your normal life. That's what athletics does. It makes it genuine and real.
I love it. You know, you're the model in so many ways. The masterclass, literally, I watched it again yesterday. You grew up in a Polish community, inner city Chicago,
Right.
youngest large extended family, and even among your friend group, you were recognized early as a leader. Where did that early relationship with leadership come from?
Yeah, it's something that just happened naturally. And when I grew up a long time ago, you had different communities in the inner city of Chicago. You had your Italian, Polish, Puerto Rican, African American, and you didn't have parents run things for you. Like, I worry a little bit how kids develop leadership now when they're minutely managed at every turn. The need to do something together prompts you to improvise. You went to a schoolyard, your buddies were there. Okay, what do we do? I didn't want to stand around, so I usually tried to organize. We played every sport. Okay, we're not just going to stand here. We got 10 guys. We can play basketball 5-on-5. We got 11 guys. We can play baseball. And we came up with new things. Two guys put a square on a school wall, and all of a sudden, with a rubber ball and bat, you have a game against the other guy. And we didn't have anybody to say, well, now you do this. That was just a natural thing. And then when I went to high school, I was captain of my basketball team for a couple of years, and it led to me getting scholarship offers. And finally, I went to the United States Military Academy. It just happened to be the best leadership school in the world. Really, my goal was to be a high school teacher and coach. And when I went to West Point, and what that did, it was like I was on steroids, leadership steroids, not literally,
Right.
where I had amazing opportunities as a result of taking that direction. Sports have given me that opportunity to lead at an early age.
That's a great leadership trait, that ability to constantly say, here's the circumstances we have. What can we do with it?
Right. There's no question about it. Hopefully, it's not just impromptu, although the spontaneous part of leadership is exciting, but the planned part of leadership can be even more exciting. Certainly, it leads to the accomplishment of a goal. A really good leader shows agility and adaptability in being able to read situations and be able to change their plan, not be a slave to it. I coached for 47 years, West Point and Duke, 11 years also as the national coach for the US. And in each season, you probably have 100 practices. Every night, I drew up a practice plan to make sure we're time efficient, building things up the right way. And then I'd have a meeting the next morning with my staff to go over responsibilities, like who is speaking here. You take this drill, I'll take this. And then when you're implementing, you're actually doing the practice, all of a sudden, boy, this isn't working. We're going to need more time. I might eliminate another thing or just say, that's not working right now. Go to something else. You and I have talked about momentum in a practice. Something is really going well, or something you had one of the players or an assistant do. I'm going to run with that. We have good momentum going there, and that produces a better practice. That's being adaptable and agile. On the other hand, if things aren't going as well, eliminate it so you don't produce a negative mojo. Yeah.
Right. Going the other way.
Yeah. And those are the exciting things about leadership. Leadership's the best profession in the world. It transcends everything, medicine, education, and family, or you name it. In business, if you don't have good leadership, that organization or that team's not going to run as well.
One of the greatest exercises in agility I think I've ever seen. You had this perfect 4-year model. Christian Leitner, Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill, these folks came and they developed and they got better.
Right.
Your best players aren't there toward the end of your career, 4
No,
years,
not even 2 years.
not even 2 years.
Yeah.
So you had to look at your development of them differently.
Right. Well, a lot of people had the impression that we changed our recruiting style. We did not. We looked for those same three things. What we did was try to identify even earlier who we would recruit. We had a good relationship with a kid who came in for 4 years, for decades. We didn't have to develop the depth of relationship that we needed to with the 1 year guy because we had all this time to develop. Their last year in high school, we ended up spending more time not reevaluating them, but talks, getting to know them, asking if they can come on unofficial visits, not just an official visit. We brought them in earlier in the summer. We eventually called it a brotherhood program where they would learn about our traditions. It was kind of force feeding, but we had to make up for the ground that we lost by not having them for a period of time. Also, the older guys were the better players. The guy who was one and done was more talented than the senior, or else the senior would have left when he was a junior.
Right.
How do you teach your culture? You saw how our managers worked at the fantasy camp. We have 12 to 15 managers. They do everything, and they're 4-year young men and women. And a lot of them, I mean, I'd hire all of them if I was in business. They were treated at the same level a player was. However, they did every job imaginable. Their motto was the difficult is easy, the impossible takes a little longer. Along with the Duke education, they learned to be on a team of managers. And you know what? They learned to work. No job was too small for them. They set an environment for our players, and our players could never say, hey, you, go get this. They better know their names. They better say thanks on trips and that. The managers and the players would sit with one another, and they became an integral part of things. So the managers were huge. And obviously our infrastructure of people, secretaries, trainer, nutritionists, we all had to speak the same voice and hold players accountable for being good people and our standards in every location, not just when they were with me. I had to rely even more on my infrastructure managers and then start the process earlier. And it worked.
You once referred to those managers as culture carriers. I love that phrase. How could we as business leaders build out a network of culture carriers like that?
It's not hard. It has to start out with one of the values of our program, respect. Everybody in your organization is important. And there'll be people that will move quicker to another location or another job. There are some that will want to be there for a long period of time in certain positions. Do not minimize those positions or take those positions for granted. Life is enjoyed in a number of different ways. There's not one way of enjoying life. And if enjoying life means that you love being with the company that you own, that you're a part of, that you get fulfillment and you can improve, you might stay there for a long period of time. Those people become those culture carriers for your group. I call it, you don't work for, you are. When I coached the US team, I told them, you are not playing for the United States. You are United States basketball. Fill in the blank, whatever your organization is. You're not working for, you are.
Yeah. I know that you went to Weber High School.
Catholic boys' school, yeah.
I saw some great yearbook photos, by the way. We've got a few of them. They're pretty
No,
great.
don't show anything.
But you've said that your high school coach, Al Ostrovsky, had a huge impact on you. He actually even had a metaphor that he said to you, always find a new floor.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, he was, God bless him, he's now passed, but he believed in me more than I believed in me. Sometimes you say, well, why didn't you believe in you? I said, I did believe in me. I thought I was really good, and I was really good in high school, a little bit cocky and whatever, but he believed in me more. He was hard on me, but honest with me. He said, you should be better. I always thought I was good. I thought I was a 10-story building
Mm.
when I was 16, 17. I lived on the 10th floor, man. He thought my building could go to the 20th floor.
Wow.
I love that about him. Really, Don, it's one of the things in my whole coaching career. I always coached my best player or players the hardest.
Mm.
If they got better, we would get better. When I say hard, that doesn't mean you're yelling at them all the time, but you had really high expectations for them that they could achieve, and you held them accountable for achieving those expectations. And that's what Coach Ostrowski did for me, and he made me better. That's when I decided I wanted to be a coach.
You know, coach, you have always sought to push your best players, but a key element in that is having a best player who's good to be pushed.
No, good point.
How did you know that you were ready to be pushed? I mean, how did Coach Ostrowski know that about you? And then how do you see it in others?
Someone has already given you a lesson or taught you some values. I was brought up by Emily and William Krzyzewski. They held me accountable. They taught me to work hard. Even though my mom didn't have a high school education, my dad only went to 2 years, they knew how to develop and teach character. When Coach Ostrowski coached me, I was acceptant. I had already encountered that same thing, like over 4 decades that we recruited high school kids, we looked for three things. They're all equal: talent. They have to be talented. You have to be able to dribble and shoot,
Right.
but you also have to have fit the environment. At West Point or Duke, not every youngster would have been great for them. And the third was character. We'd see how they interacted with their teammates, their parents, their teachers. We didn't recruit some kids who were talented because we didn't feel that they had the level of character developed that we would want. Not that they were bad kids, but I think we helped guys get better. We didn't make them good young men. They were good young men when we got them. We made them better good young men.
Right.
The base was already there. I coached kids talent with character. I didn't coach talented characters. No, Coach Ostrowski didn't coach a talented character. He coached a kid that had some talent, and he had character that was developed by his parents and his family up to a point at that time. You just kept getting better. So you look for good people, not just talent, but character. Find that out in your recruitment process. I speak a lot about not only recruiting talent, but good character. And when they're on your team, to give them the opportunity to get better. How do you coach the players? Do you just use them or do you develop them?
Right. Yeah. You referenced USA basketball, and maybe one of the most amazing things I've ever seen was how you created for that team what you called feel it moments,
Right.
moments where they felt that they were USA basketball. Tell me about your thought process in creating these kinds of moments and the leadership imperative you believe exists there.
It's important that we listen and to see, but I don't think you own it until you feel it.
Mm.
You know, it penetrates your heart and then your mind. Every team I've had, you try to create some moments like that with the US team. A lot of it had to do with the military. We wanted them to learn about selfless service. So we had wounded warriors come in and speak to them, the very first group that we ever had. And all our guys were crying. Did they feel it?
Oh, yeah.
They felt it. It's exciting. Really, the first night with our first team, I told them after our standards meeting about how we're going to create common ground and live together. And I said, when you go back up to your suites, I want you to be 16 for 1 minute. I know you're zillionaires and studs. Just be 16 and look on your beds. And what we did was we laid out their Olympic uniforms. Later that night, I'm in the casino. We're in Vegas and I'm playing some video poker and I got a tap on my back and it's Kobe Bryant. And I said, "What's up?" He said, "Coach, I did what you asked me to do." "What happened?" He said, "I cried."
Mm.
And I miss him terribly. And what a exceptional human being, not just basketball player he was. And are there moments in your group where you accentuate a value, a feeling? Is there music? Is there a video? Is there a person that comes to talk, not necessarily to give a 60-minute lecture, but maybe a minute? Or let's look at something somebody said. Let's share this quote. What does it mean to you? One of the great force multipliers in business to make people feel a part of it is to ask two questions. How do you feel about that? What do you mean? No, I want to know how you feel. Uh, you really want to know what's inside of me? Yeah, you're that important. What do you think? You want to know what I think? You're not just going to tell me what I'm supposed to think? No, I want to know how you feel and what you're thinking about. You can get an idea from one of the players. I would have conversations with players like, "What do you think about this? How do you feel? Coach, I think we should do this." Or, if we tried this tomorrow, that empowers a person to be themselves. That also creates ownership. They're not just doing a job. It means more than that. You have to make your group feel that way.
Yeah.
A leader doesn't have to come up with every idea. A leader doesn't have to be the smartest person in the room. A leader should get a lot of smart people together and listen. There's a reason that they're good. You wouldn't have recruited them or they wouldn't be on the US team unless they're good. They probably have a lot of things that you don't know about. Get to know more about them and then incorporate it into that group. It's important to remember that although we're the Duke basketball team for 42 years or the US team for 11, each team is different. Even if you had almost all the players back in the old days for the next year, they're different. People keep changing. That's good.
Right.
Make sure that you give them room to grow, but also that you find out how they've changed, what their goals are. Get to know them. Leadership is a people understanding business. It's not a flow chart. That's my problem with bureaucracy. You need some of that. There's no question. You don't need all of it.
Right.
There are really a lot of great books on leadership. Some of them have different titles, even though they're good books. The 7 Steps or the 21 Things, or that's cool. A lot of great ideas in there, but there's no recipe for leadership.
Mm.
Like I did those 12 things. I don't have a team yet. Well, there's probably 13, 14, and 15 that you should do too. Or maybe you should have eliminated 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
It's not an exact science. You don't have to be perfect with it, but you know what? You have to be honest.
Mhm.
When you are those things, there's a word that we use in leadership: vulnerability. Be accountable, hold yourself accountable. I didn't judge that the right way. I should have listened to a suggestion I had. Or on the other hand, I listened to a suggestion and I did that. I didn't do it. I did it because of the suggestion. Vulnerability is not just when you do something wrong, it's showing when you've done something right,
Mhm.
but you give credit to other people, being inclusive.
Mhm.
If you're inclusive, that means you own it. If everyone owns it, they'll fight for it. It's not rental property.
Wow, I like that. You know, in prep to do this interview, I read tons of articles and some great quotes that you had, but one of them really stood out to me was you said communication doesn't always occur naturally, even among a tight-knit group of individuals. Communication must be taught and practiced in order to bring everyone together as one. How do you, as a leader, teach communication and how do you practice it?
Yeah, well, it's really needed now. after COVID and with the use of phones, all the technology, it's great, but it really hurt communication because we're not together enough. So the best way to be, even if you are so-called tight group, is be together. How are you going to talk to somebody if you're not together in person, not just on the phone, not just texting? You don't feel one another. Part of communication is to not just listen to, but feel what they're saying, how they are saying it. I'll take this piece of paper and read something from it, and I'll send it to you. Will you read it in the same voice
As you wrote it.
as I wrote it?
Mhm.
Probably not, unless we communicated. Here's what I was trying to say to when you read this. Oh, I get it. I never had a player meeting in my office. I had a small office in a locker room complex. We shared like a little kitchen with the players and all that. I'd work out down there and someone's getting a drink from a refrigerator and, hey, Mark, come over here and sit down for a minute. In a practice, especially as I got older, I was not capable of doing the drills or teaching them, but I'd go to different parts and I'd always tell my assistants, if I step in impromptu to say something, don't be offended. Or I'd take a kid off to the side, or after a practice, let's sit down here. They have to see how you communicate. That's the best way to teach communication.
And I love, though, that you were consistently positioning yourself. You were putting
Yeah.
yourself in a place to be able to be an impromptu. You could have stayed in your sixth floor office and not come downstairs.
Or sent a memo.
Right.
Or an email.
Yeah.
Or a text, whatever. It gets me when people say, yeah, well, I sent an email. The person who is conveying the message has the responsibility to make sure that that message is accepted and understood. Don't blame the people you're sending the email to, or if you didn't phrase it the right way. I do a lot of speaking. Who's my audience?
Mm-hmm.
What's the theme? What are you trying to get across? How can we do it?
Right. Coach, you've had one complete season in retirement.
Right.
And you're getting ready to start a second. Many of us are afraid of what happens when you stop doing that thing that defines us. What advice would you give us in that area?
Well, I never looked like coaching was defining me. I was enjoying what I was doing and I loved it. I've been a lifelong learner of teamwork and leadership. I've continued to do that. I do have a lifetime contract at Duke to be an ambassador, so I have my office. That's an advantage. A lot of people don't move to something else because they don't have a home base. I have a home and I have a home office. When I'm in Durham, I come to my office at Duke every day for a certain amount of time. I speak a lot around the country for the Washington Speakers Bureau. I still have my radio show. I'm a professor at our Fuqua School of Business and the Practice of Leadership. We run a huge nonprofit for the Emily Krzyzewski Center. And a cool thing is I have 10 grandkids that all live within 10 minutes of us. Wow, how good that is. I have purpose every day and some level of relevance, not media relevance or the TV relevance. I'm okay not having that. I had so much, I had more than I probably deserved, but it's been terrific. I have not missed coaching. And the one part of coaching, I guess, is relationship building. I'm 76 years old. I feel like I'm a lot younger because I've had to be younger.
With all those 20-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kept getting older and some of them never got to be 20. Being around them was exciting, much more exciting than the crowds. I mean, we're friends. When you asked me to do this, I didn't accept because we were going to talk about our hobbies, which may be cool. That's for another podcast or another show. You had said, I want to talk about leadership. I want to talk about teamwork. It's been exciting to do that because even some of our communication today, has made me say something maybe a little bit different than I normally say. I make notes about that stuff. This has been a good thing for me to do.
Mhm.
It's been kind of refreshing, to be quite frank with you.
I love it. Coach, I want to talk about your buddy, Jim Valvano.
Right.
The summer of 23, maybe the greatest speech ever given. He gave us that inspiration, and it's been a passion for you to raise money, ridiculous amounts of money in his name. Can you give us just a little nugget of why we should all jump in and support the V Foundation and the work that you and the others there are doing?
Yeah. Well, we're in our 30th year.
Wow. Hard to believe.
We are winning from 30 years ago until now. Jim's vision to raise money for research. It's the only way to beat cancer.
Right.
Jimmy had the vision of that while he was dying. There was no cure, and there weren't as many researchers, or a researcher would start out and then run out of money and close up their lab. So in the 30 years, the V Foundation's probably raised about 340 to 350 million dollars, probably over 350. Over 1,100 research labs have been established as a result of that. This is one of the most amazing things. Don, once you start a lab, you can get other grants. Those labs have turned into 16 to 17 billion dollars worth of research. Crazy, right?
Powerful.
Because they get more grants because they don't go out of business. And when they don't go out of business, you have a chance to find a cure. When you donate to the V Foundation, you got a chance, man, to have an impact on beating cancer. It's happening. We just got through with the big V wine celebration that I host in Napa, and we have our scientific committee come out there, about 20 of the top oncologists in the United States. And they talk about all the amazing things that are going on. These docs, if you were in a game right now, we feel like we got it. We haven't won it completely. And give us more money.
Mm.
Put more researchers on the court. And you know what? At the end of the day, there won't be any room for cancer.
Mm. Well, you're winning. I'm winning today because I got a chance to learn from you. Thank you so much, Coach, for being a corporate competitor with us today.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, Don. And best of luck in what you're doing. This has been an exciting time for me, too.
It is just plain not often that you get a chance to have an interview and get into that kind of depth with one of the greatest coaches in history, certainly the winningest coach in the history of college basketball. I know I usually give you 3 of my great takeaways. Today, sorry, doubling up. You're getting 6. There was so much good content here. So the first was, one of the great force multipliers in business are when you ask these 2 questions. How do you feel about that? And what do you think? Most employees are not used to hearing those 2 questions. What do you think? How do you feel? And when they find out that you actually care enough to ask and listen to their answers, then you are changing the dynamic. It empowers your team to become themselves. When you ask those questions, you might come up with great answers because you don't have to, as a leader, be the one that comes up with all the ideas. And if you ask those 2 questions, you listen to the answers, you may, in fact, come up with fresh and new and creative and unique ideas and ways to address the challenges you have. Secondly, the importance of respecting everyone in your organization, everyone from the managers of the team who are going to be there year in and year out to that superstar who's going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Treat them all with respect. Everyone's important. Do not minimize others by the position they hold or even the time they choose to stay in that position. Some people want to stay in a position for a longer period of time. That does not in any way cast an aspersion on their gift to you and the team. The third was how he builds those feel it moments. I talk about that in a keynote speech that I deliver often about how Coach taught me that lesson, creating those feel it moments. His line, I don't think you own it until you feel it. And it penetrates your heart. Boy, when we feel who we work for, when we feel who it is that we are in service of, we change the dynamic of the discretionary energy we bring to work. You don't work for, you are. You don't work for USA Basketball, you are USA Basketball. Think about the empowerment that comes with that. Number 4, he talked about the importance that the person sending the message is responsible for making sure it was heard and understood. Now, how often do we or do leaders just throw it out there and assume if I threw it out there, it's on you now to get it? Truth is, you have not taught until they understand. Coach Wooden used to talk about that all the time. It's up to the message giver to get the message across and make sure it's received. I can't assume that just because I said it, you understood it. The next one that jumped out to me was the impromptu manner in which he stays engaged with his team, the ability to regularly come down from the 6th floor and work out in that practice area so that the players would see him and he would end up in conversations that he wouldn't have if he could only summon them to the 6th floor. How do you do that? And what are you willing to do? And then lastly, the importance of building a great plan. Remember, he talked about the amount of effort he put into his practice plans, but then he had to be agile and be ready to adjust when the moment called for it. Have a plan. Don't be a slave to it. Make sure that you are ready to go be agile, and in all of those lessons, become a greater corporate competitor. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. I appreciate you.